Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We return to the Matrix. Someone posted that they would like for us to return to the Matrix series. Well, this is the Matrix. I guess this would be a great time to explain everything. It's quite simple. The Matrix is an illusion where human beings are plugged into a digital reality. They can't survive without it. Some are so hardwired into the system, they will fight to protect it. On a side note, has anyone ever wondered who Neo was talking to on the other end of the line? That character was never introduced. Or were they? You know who Neo was talking to on the end of that line before he flew away? You. Yep, he was talking to actual human beings in real time. It was presented in the film, warning the agents within the Matrix. But outside of the film itself, the message was to real human beings. Ponder that for a moment. Many are satisfied with being another program on the conveyor belt, while others have a conscience and fight to break free from that conveyor belt. They are considered unplugged. Okay, so we know many have been slightly disappointed in our analysis of the Cobberger trial. We understand, but you also have to keep in mind we've done all we could in that investigation. There comes a time where you start to question if all of your hard work was invested into something that was an illusion, like the steak being gobbled up by Cypher in The Matrix. Quote, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss. Unquote. Ignorance is bliss. Powerful words from the traitor. The point Cypher wanted to relay to Neo, as he already realized he was different, is there is no need to question why. There is no need to challenge the norms. There is no need to be different. Ultimately, there is no need for you to think outside the box we exist in, known as the Matrix. What is all this rambling about? The Chaos is not a true crime channel. We don't have the same talents as others, who are authentic true crime content creators and even investigators. But we do possess a key attribute. And that would be sincerity. And we have to honor that sincerity by presenting our views about the Cobberger case. Some out there may have thought it was a psyop, but were afraid to give that opinion publicly. Don't be afraid, because fear is what the agents in the Matrix feed off of.
Okay, don't get all philosophical. My colleague wants everyone to think outside of the box. That's the point. I do want to address the terminology a moment. The Cobberger case could be considered, by definition, a false flag operation. It's still based in psychology, but the intentions are a bit different. By definition, a false flag operation is an act committed with the intent of disguising the actual source of responsibility and pinning the blame on another party. This would be exactly what happened to Brian Cobberger. He was framed for the murders of 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho, while the operatives disguised the actual source of the crime. We've attacked the case at high speed, exposing the frame every step of the way. A psychological operation is similar. It constitutes a strategic communication technique employed to influence the perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors of targeted audiences. Operating at the intersection of psychology, communication, and military strategy, PsyOps aims to shape public opinion, alter enemy decision-making processes, and achieve strategic objectives through nonviolent means. Now, this is the broader definition, but applying this from a societal strategy, it's all about the target being perceived a certain way that shapes the public's opinion about that target. A false flag operation would mean that the murders being real murders consist of a man being framed to protect the actual suspects, like the male who left blood at the crime scene. A psychological operation would be the same element of framing Cobberger, but this would not be real, meaning there were no actual victims. For those who are sensitive in the Matrix, this does not equate to insulting the victims. These are two different realities being examined. Now here's the kicker. In either a false flag or psychological operation, both strategies have failed. The public, based on general consensus, believe Cobberger has been framed for the murders, may have been involved but not the only guilty party, or was an undercover government operative investigating the murders himself. So whatever the outcome is in the case, it does not align with the initial objective now. Our overall take is that the case is too convoluted, where our investigative work continued to go in a circle. Sure, we exposed a lot and put a few pieces together, but the goal of an investigator is to solve the case. Might be considered a pipe dream, generally speaking, but that is the mission. Everyone is talking about the gag order being lifted in the case. Great, just great. Lift the gag order now that you have a guilty plea by the defendant. Woohoo! This is the type of nonsense that agitates the chaos. It's playing with the public at this point.
You can't trust anything coming from that courtroom. We've stated this years ago. Now everyone wants to find out what's in the secret box? Yeah, there's nothing in there. Think about it. There is nothing in those gag orders that would change the way Ann Taylor would have attacked the state. She had enough ammunition and still didn't have much impact. That's just the reality. Some disagree, claiming she was up against it and all, but that's not an excuse. If Cobberger had an attorney from his hometown, we'd be preparing for trial. Heck, there may have already been a mistrial and new investigation at this point. An attorney from Pennsylvania would be more determined to fight for Cobberger. No fear of retaliation from the state. They would just keep filing motions and demand that the judge acknowledge the conflicting evidence. An attorney understands that judges need to be convinced. They need to be humbled in some instances as well. Taylor appeared more like the defendant, afraid to speak up for herself and her client. We examined it. It was clear as day. What happened to the additional people brought in that joined the defense team? What impact did they have? Listen, if you have enough information and evidence to convince the judge that charges need to be dropped against your client, then you fight through the BS until that's the verdict. For those who still believe otherwise, let's put you in Cobberger's shoes. Blood of another male was collected at the crime scene you're accused of being physically in. DNA of other individuals was also discovered underneath one of the victim's fingernails. Would you be satisfied with Ann Taylor's performance? I thought so. This would force the judge to hold the prosecution's feet to the fire, and once that happened, you'd get all of those motions about alternative suspects, the IgG results, and who the hell were the males leaving blood at the crime scene. The prosecution and the defense made a deal at the expense of Cobberger, and now they think releasing sealed documentation after that deal will somehow do the case justice? Let's move on. Interesting enough, Karen Reed was found not guilty in her manslaughter trial. We didn't investigate that case due to focusing on the Cobberger case, but I find that case very ironic.
Karen Reed, the Massachusetts woman accused of killing her police officer boyfriend in 2022, has been found not guilty of murder, ending one of the most watched trials in recent history. Her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, was found unresponsive in the snow outside a colleague's suburban home and later pronounced dead. Now, Miss Reed faced multiple charges and was accused of dropping Mr. O'Keefe off at a fellow police officer's home after a night of drinking, hitting him with her car, and driving away from the scene. Now, the chaos goes right to a key point. The prosecution witness list also included a state trooper who was fired after he disclosed during the first trial that he used unprofessional language to describe Miss Reed, and two other policemen who were formerly disciplined after the first trial. In their closing arguments, prosecutors zeroed in on Miss Reed's own statements to a documentary series in which she said, "I didn't think I hit him," referring to Mr. O'Keefe, but that she may have, quote, "clipped him," unquote. Hit, clipped. A human being clipped by a vehicle is still hitting them. And you see, this is the slick wording to make it seem like an accident instead of intentional. yet you're still in the hot seat. If you thought you may have clipped him, wouldn't you get out to check to see if he was okay and if he needed medical attention? In retrospect, what place is she acknowledging this action? Is it during the real-time incident, or is it looking back and she is claiming it was possible that she clipped him? Does it matter? Because she is accepting the possibility that she hit him. So now it comes down to, was it an accident or was it intentional? And if it was an accident, why wouldn't she... Okay, how do you not realize you've hit another human being? She wasn't that drunk. That's not going to fly. The context clues of her statement, being she may have clipped him, is conflicting with her own team of defense attorneys who claimed O'Keefe was beaten by individuals at the party and then dragged out into the snow. And this would conflict with Reed's vague acknowledgement of, quote, clipping O'Keefe.
Oh no, here we go again. Let's spot the wacky elements in this case as well. I think I clipped him. Yeah, it wasn't like I hit him, I just clipped him. So you're admitting that you clipped him? Or is that your assumption? I basically admitted in the documentary that I ran over his foot and clipped him in the knee. Oh, interesting. So this means you accept a level of culpability then, correct? Quote, the defense, meanwhile, suggested that Miss Reed was framed by law enforcement officers in Mr. O'Keefe's social circle. They pointed to obvious dog bites on his arm and a head injury he suffered from falling backwards, arguing he was beaten, then left outside in the cold, unquote. Now, her defense team is claiming she was framed for O'Keefe's death. Would have helped Cobberger if Ann Taylor had the guts to just come out and say her client was being framed, you see? But is there any proof from the defense to support this claim? Because they are claiming that law enforcement attempted to frame her for O'Keefe's death. Without any proof, it's speculation. But the physical evidence, which is proof, is that Reed hit O'Keefe. Regardless if it's deemed an accident, that's what an investigation would determine, if it was an accident or if it was intentional. And if it was intentional, then that opens up a can of maggots. Anywho, the prosecution played the portion of her documentary where she presented a somewhat hypothetical scenario of her running over O'Keefe's feet and clipping him in the knee.
So I thought, could I have run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it? I mean, I've always got the music blasting. It's snowing. I got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit the back of my car and I hit him in the knee and he was drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something? And then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and threw up or passed out? And David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
This was presented to support the prosecution's claim that Reed intentionally hit O'Keefe. And not only did she hit him once, she then put the vehicle in reverse and hit him again. Now, in the documentary, she's creating a physical setting where she had been drinking, the windows were up, the heat blasting, audio playing, which contributed to not being aware of O'Keefe, perhaps, knocking on the window, blah, blah, blah. But despite all of these scenarios Reed presented, if she physically hit O'Keefe, which she's basically accepting as a possibility, then this physical contact led to him, falling unconscious?
Because in her deposition here, she's alluding to O'Keefe somehow falling down after being, quote, clipped, then possibly threw up and was trying to regain his strength to seek medical attention. Yeah, it sounded very specific, yet random at the same time. In that drawn-out explanation, Reed is essentially stating this condition is what led to O'Keefe's death. He was somehow immobilized after being, quote, clipped, then fell unconscious in the freezing weather and died.
Did he come and hit the back of my car and I hit him in the knee and he was drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something. And then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over? Or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and threw up or passed out? And David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
But this is not what her defense is claiming. They're claiming O'Keefe was murdered by his peers. Seems there's two different scenarios, you see? And this could be why Reed declined to testify. Conflicting information creates suspicion. Yep, she didn't testify in her first trial, and she didn't testify in her second trial, yet was perfectly comfortable in being interviewed and part of a documentary. Her attorneys advised her to stay away from the stand because there is a gap between when she dropped O'Keefe off, allegedly, then apparently accidentally clipped him upon departing, and somehow O'Keefe was discovered deceased in the snow near the home where the party was. If the defense claims that O'Keefe's peers are responsible for his death, where they actually murdered him and then threw him out into the snow, hello, there's DNA that's involved. Surely crooked cops would be smarter than to beat one of their own to death and then toss his body out into the snow near the home.
Think about that for a moment, seriously. The defense claimed that officers beat O'Keefe and tossed him out into the freezing weather near the home, and apparently went back inside and had rounds of whiskey. Hold on, Johnson. Don't you think we should, take the body miles away? I mean, when someone discovers the body, they're going to identify him, and we're going to have to answer some questions about his death. You think too much. He froze to death. We didn't even know he was in the neighborhood.
Our sarcasm is our way of showing how absurd things are. I hope you don't mind.
And guess who discovered his body? McCabe and Reed. I wonder how that went. Did McCabe discover the body first and then call Reed? Or did Reed just so happen to come back to the area and told McCabe about it? I have a hunch it's the latter. Now let's make sure we're on the same page here. Logic, my friends. If fellow officers are conspiring to take out one of their own, I'm going to assume they will be a bit more strategic in how they do it. Like staging a home invasion at his home, a shooting at the corner store, shooting at a red light, more discreet ways to take him out. I don't think they would literally assault him at a party, dump his body out into the cold right near the home. That would go down as one of the most popular episodes on World's Dumbest Corrupt Cops.
And apparently there weren't any witnesses who saw them taking the body outside and just dumped it there. Wait a minute, wasn't McCabe at the party? So what's the deal with her? She was friends with both Reed and O'Keefe. Did she claim to witness O'Keefe being attacked at the party? Oh, that's right. She claimed they never made it to the home. You see? So with McCabe claims she thought she spotted Reed's vehicle as she anticipated their arrival to the party, but never saw them come inside the home, then this means McCabe's testimony conflicts with what Reed's team is claiming. And guess what? Reed claims McCabe is a liar. Yep, seems she wasn't willing to lie on the stand for you. You see, McCabe was friends with both of them, but Reed thought after she committed vehicular manslaughter that McCabe would side with her and testify in her favor. After all, she's a friend, right? He's dead. Now I need you to defend your other friend in his death. But she didn't. In one episode, we've pretty much solved that case and we never investigated it. Again, McCabe claimed that the couple never came to the home. So the physical activity is magnified even more now and justifies the prosecution's claim that Reed did more than, quote, clip O'Keefe. She hit him, then ran him over, sped away, a hit and run that led to a man's death.
Now, if Karen Reed wasn't guilty of murdering O'Keefe, yet her defense team never proved with evidence that he was beaten and left to die by individuals at the party, then there was a mystery to how he was found deceased outside. This was never established, and the cause of death, which included blunt force trauma to the head, is linked to some form of a physical altercation. Now, the medical examiner claimed he had swollen eyelids,
laceration to the back of his head, skull fractures, a cut above his right eye, abrasions on his nose and arm, 2 black eyes, and a scratch on his right knee. Now, this appears to be an assault, right? Okay, there is a bunch of conflicting information. Quote, investigators found the SUV at her parents' house and seized it. Prosecutors said the 2021 black Lexus SUV had a shattered right rear tail light and several scratches on its rear bumper. There were shards of glass embedded in the bumper, prosecutors said, consistent with a glass O'Keefe had previously been seen holding. Now, this would indicate that O'Keefe perhaps threw the glass at Reed's vehicle, and that would also indicate they had an argument. Now, this is supported by the prosecution's claims of a rocky relationship. Quote, pieces of the taillight were also found in the snow outside the home on Fairview Road, prosecutors have said. Earlier this year, they said the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory had found O'Keefe's DNA on the taillight. Quote, the victim and the defendant had been arguing for quite some time, numerous times over the weeks preceding this, that on one occasion the victim had attempted to break up with the defendant, had asked her to leave his home, and she refused to do so, Assistant Norfolk District Attorney Adam Laley said in court last year. Now, apparently the prosecution has evidence that they were having a rocky relationship, and if there was a rocky relationship with Reed basically admitting she, quote, clipped O'Keefe, then, well, this could be linked to prior issues they had where Reed hit him intentionally. In court documents, prosecutors cite voicemails left on O'Keefe's phone in the time period surrounding his death in which Reed allegedly screamed, John, I fucking hate you, called him a pervert, and accused him of cheating on her. Okay, now this would be evidence presented in court that indicated Reed had anger problems and believed O'Keefe was cheating on her. And we all know a woman scorned is potentially dangerous. And if there was O'Keefe's DNA on Reed's taillights, then I think it's obvious to how that played out. They both were drunk, got into an argument where it appears Reed was paranoid about him cheating, shouts and tells him to get out of the vehicle. She, get this, runs over his foot like she stated in her documentary. He's pissed off, throws his glass at her taillight. She then reverses the vehicle and simply ran him over. He was drunk, so this would explain why Reed mentioned something about O'Keefe throwing up after she had, quote, clipped him. All of the alleged bruises by the medical examiner can't be confirmed except for the photo of the marks on his arm. Now, those marks are alleged to be dog bite marks. Let's examine it briefly.
Hold on. I think we spotted a lie by Reed. Quote, Reed told police she dropped O'Keefe off at the house shortly after midnight and went home because she was having stomach issues. Early in the morning, after she was unable to get O'Keefe to respond to her calls and texts, Reed said she returned to the home with McCabe and Carrie Roberts, another potential witness at trial. They found O'Keefe unresponsive outside the home on Fairview Road in the snow amid blizzard-like conditions. Unquote. Okay, that's one report. But what about the timeline of events from Wikipedia? Quote, Reed drove O'Keefe in her Lexus LX570 to 34 Fairview, although she was unfamiliar with the neighborhood. Jennifer McCabe called O'Keefe at 12:14 a.m. to give them directions. She and her husband arrived at the house at 12:18 a.m. Reed and O'Keefe pulled up in front of the house at 12:24 a.m. but remained in the car, as Reed felt uncomfortable going inside. O'Keefe told her he would quickly check inside to ensure they were welcome. O'Keefe began walking towards the house at 12:31 a.m. according to his phone's Apple Health data. Reed claims she watched him enter the house. Jennifer McCabe sent a text to O'Keefe at 12:31 a.m. saying, "Pull behind me," which he read shortly before locking his phone for the last time at 12:32 a.m. She did not send another text to O'Keefe for 9 minutes. At 12:40 a.m., she sent O'Keefe a text saying, "Hello," unquote. Okay, In the Wikipedia timeline, it doesn't mention anything about Reed going back home due to having, quote, stomach issues. It says Reed didn't feel comfortable going inside. The context clues here are important. Reed states she didn't feel comfortable going inside, yet she doesn't explain why she felt uncomfortable, such as someone at the party she didn't get along with, or the dogs at the home barking. Yet you agreed to attend the party, which you weren't familiar with the neighborhood or residents beforehand, remember? But those are sidebar points. The main point is Reed claiming she watched O'Keefe go inside the home. But in her interview, she mentioned how she may have, quote, clipped O'Keefe and even run over his foot. When exactly did this happen? Because surely you guys would have had a bit of a dispute about you so-called accidentally clipping him with your vehicle, right? And then there's more. In that same interview, Reed spoke in an incoherent manner, stating that it was possible that O'Keefe may have threw up and may have tried to regain his strength after she so-called clipped him.
I don't know, what if I ran his foot over, or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and threw up or passed out?
But Reed claimed she watched him go inside the home. Also, in that same scenario, wouldn't O'Keefe, text McCabe and tell her that Reed accidentally, quote, clipped him and he needs medical assistance? Heck, why wouldn't Reed be the one to give him the assistance? Oh, that's right. She drove off because she had a stomach virus. Oh, wait, she drove off because she was growing impatient. Quote, Reed grew impatient when O'Keefe did not come back out and started driving off towards his house at 1 Meadows Avenue. Reed connected to the Wi-Fi at O'Keefe's house at 12:36 a.m. After arriving at the home, she left him a succession of voicemails expressing that she felt he was using her as a babysitter while he partied and drank. Unquote. Wait a minute. Was she leaving because she had a stomach virus? Or was she leaving because she became agitated that he didn't come back out? And then she left him voicemail messages claiming O'Keefe was using her as a babysitter while he partied and drank? You could have attended the same party, but you felt uncomfortable, or you had a stomach virus. She's all over the place, and this is because she is trying to cover up her lies. Mind you, Reed wouldn't acknowledge a scenario where she clipped O'Keefe's knee or run over his foot if it never happened. She tried to make it appear all of the distractions made it difficult for her to remember if she clipped him, but the reason she doesn't refute hitting or clipping O'Keefe is because if she claimed she didn't do it, the forensic evidence would prove she in fact did. The forensic proved that O'Keefe's DNA was discovered on her taillight. This means, regardless if it was an accident or not, her vehicle came in contact with O'Keefe, and this is why she has to concede this fact, yet she tries to create a scenario of it being an accident. Yet that physical so-called accident would conflict with the claim that she watched him go inside the home. You see, we've solved the case. She's guilty of vehicular manslaughter. Or we can't even suggest it was attempted murder with her vehicle. Again, so you can clearly see Reed has several accounts of what happened upon arriving at the party. In one scenario, she felt uncomfortable and watched O'Keefe go inside. I guess in this scenario, it aligns with her being agitated that he didn't come back outside to let her know everything is cool at the party. Bogus anyway, but for the sake of this nonsense. In another scenario, Reed wasn't interested in attending the party because she had an upset stomach. Mind you, it says that Reed told police she dropped O'Keefe off shortly after midnight and went home because, that's right, because she was having stomach issues. So did she text O'Keefe and tell him she's going home? Apparently not. So she just left without letting him know she's leaving? That seems a bit off, don't you think? And then in another scenario, once she got back home suffering from the stomach issue, she then leaves O'Keefe several voicemails complaining he's at the party having a good time. You didn't feel comfortable about it anyway, remember? And you had a stomach virus on top of that. So you're definitely not interested in the party. This is a bunch of nonsense. I'm done.
Yeah, the chaos focuses on the oddities more so than anything else here because it indicates suspicion. Here's the question for the defense. Is there any evidence that O'Keefe had any turmoil with his colleagues? I mean, if the defense claims they beat him and left him to die, pretty sure they had a grudge towards O'Keefe in the past. But based on the report, it appeared he wasn't familiar with those individuals. They were invited to a party, and Reed claimed she was uncomfortable, didn't know the area well, and such. If these were friends of O'Keefe, or at least associates, she wouldn't feel uncomfortable and definitely would know the area as they would have visited the residence frequently. The point here, those individuals would not beat O'Keefe and dump his body outside the home without having a prior, spiteful relationship with him. Heck, even if they did, surely they wouldn't leave a trail of evidence right in front of their home. It doesn't make sense. And investigators were supposed to look at the actual physical evidence to build from, like evidence that the couple had been arguing around that time, voicemails left by Reed saying she hated O'Keefe, called him a pervert, and he was cheating on her. Quote, through trace analysis and forensic testing, the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory discovered the victim's DNA present on the broken taillight and microscopic pieces of red and clear apparent plastic located in the victim's clothing. Prosecutors wrote, comparison testing was conducted and the results demonstrate that the microscopic pieces of red and clear plastic are consistent with the broken pieces of plastic from the defendant's rear taillight. Unquote. So, based on physical evidence, doesn't this prove that Reed's vehicle hit O'Keefe? Yep. For the microscopic pieces of red and clear plastic to be found on O'Keefe's clothing, this means the impact of that force, being her literally hitting O'Keefe, was so strong that it left microscopic pieces of the taillight on his clothing. But somehow the judge doesn't see this as strong evidence against Reed.
Inconsistencies about why she didn't attend the party, O'Keefe's DNA found on Reed's broken taillight, and Reed literally admitting she hit or clipped O'Keefe on that night. Heck, you heard the audio. The only thing the judge needs to sort out is if Reed accidentally hit O'Keefe or if it was intentional, and all of the witness accounts should have been taken into consideration. Quote, multiple witnesses described a trip to Aruba a month before O'Keefe's death as a pivotal moment in the couple's relationship, prosecutors said. O'Keefe's niece, who's 14 at the time, reportedly said Reed had accused O'Keefe of kissing someone else, leading to a 20-minute argument in their hotel room. A longtime friend of O'Keefe told police she had organized the Aruba trip, inviting about 70 people. That woman's sister described an encounter with O'Keefe and Reed, saying she hugged O'Keefe after bumping into him in the lobby. She heard the defendant yell, "John, who the fuck was that?" the district attorney's office wrote. Upon being told it was his friend's sister, the defendant then said, "I don't give a fuck," then yelled to the woman, "Fuck you." A man who was present at Albert's home the night before O'Keefe's body was found said Reed surprised him with a kiss on the lips about 2 weeks earlier, according to prosecutors. Could this be why Reed felt uncomfortable going to the party? Someone she was secretly hooking up with was at the party? Well, it makes sense. Apparently, there was evidence. Quote, that man showed texts between him and Reed to state police, which prosecutors described as romantic in nature. In one of them, she allegedly told him not to worry about O'Keefe finding out about the kiss, as she knows where the cameras are on the victim's house. Asked if she was happy in her relationship with O'Keefe, Reed allegedly told the man O'Keefe had cheated on her during the Aruba trip. So, the classic projection and gaslighting of a cheater. Blame O'Keefe for cheating to make him feel like he's guilty of something when you're the one snooping around behind his back. Yeah, she's giving off spiteful vibes, without a doubt.
A whack job. Yep. Examining these photos from the courtroom, we see the essence of a psychopath. Bulging eyes, aggressive brow, aggressive smirk. These are clear signs of someone who has anger issues. I can envision this same aggressive tone in saying, quote, John, who the fuck is that woman you were talking to? Oh, that's my friend's sister Karen. Calm down. You're making a scene. I don't give a fuck who she is. Fuck her too. Yep. an emotionally and mentally unstable person who displays erratic behavior, which is also unpredictable. So at the party, an argument could lead to Reed hitting O'Keefe with her vehicle. He throws a wine glass at the taillight, and Reed, consumed with anger, reverses the vehicle and runs him over. Doesn't care if he was severely injured at that point. Doesn't even care to notify anyone he was out there lying on the street. Just speeds off in a rage. She, quote, lost it, meaning, well, she lost her mind. And they even claim she lost it even against her defense team. Quote, Karen Reed loses it on defense team as trial over the alleged murder of her cop boyfriend drags on. Karen Reed snapped at her legal team and rolled her eyes during court on Wednesday, unquote. If she loses it against the very people who are fighting for her freedom, what do you think she did to a husband she hated deep down? Run him over with her vehicle and then casually drive off like nothing happened? Now, this was a crime of passion, the passion of hatred. The judge had the opportunity to evaluate all of the evidence, the voicemails she left, witness accounts of her anger, and even text messages from her side dude, which was deemed romantic in nature. And she even acknowledges that she may have, quote, clipped O'Keefe in the knee or run over his foot that night. I mean, you have to factor in all of this evidence, which supports the prosecution's claim that she intentionally hit O'Keefe. Her defense team never provided any evidence to support their claim he was assaulted at the party, despite what the medical examiner reported. We know they don't necessarily tell the truth. Just look at the medical examiner in the Idaho 4. I want to know, if she has been found not guilty of any crime related to her husband's death, then what does the judge and jury think happened that night? Well, by default, they would have to accept that he was assaulted by those individuals at the party, and then his body was dumped off on the road and left to die. But how can they believe that when Reed admitted to, quote, clipping his knee, and forensics evidence proved that his DNA was on the taillight? Microscopic pieces of the taillight was found on his clothing, and the wine glass he had, shards of that glass, was found on that very taillight. The prosecution didn't do a good job neither, apparently. Because just like we exposed the conflicting accounts of Reed, it should have been addressed. Maybe it was. We didn't follow it. But she was found not guilty, so we assume it wasn't mentioned. And that would be a scenario such as this. Miss Reed told officers that she dropped O'Keefe off at the party and went home because she had stomach issues. But I would like to present Exhibit A, where she is scolding O'Keefe about being stuck at home babysitting while he is having a good time at the party. If she went home because she didn't feel well, why would she be agitated that O'Keefe was at the party? Furthermore, nobody told her to, quote, babysit because someone had to be babysitting while they were out partying anyway. She chose to go home and then complains she's not at the party. Does this make sense to anyone? I'm going to assume there is something suspicious about that voicemail. Can I suggest that this voicemail was used as an alibi and wasn't physically present at the home when the initial attack or complications occurred? Hear me out. In the interview Miss Reed had, which was a part of a documentary series, she stated that she may have, quote, clipped Mr. O'Keefe on his knee or run over his foot that night. She goes on to explain how Mr. O'Keefe would have or could have struggled to recover after this incident. May I ask the judge and jury a very important question? When would this physical incident take place if Miss Reed told officers she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off at the party? Your Honor, there is obviously a lie in her accounts, and that lie would lead to what truly happened that night. Isn't this physical evidence that Reed literally hit him with her vehicle? Don't tell me there is gender bias here, because clearly she hit her so-called husband. She admitted it. The prosecution played it in court in front of the judge and jury. Priceless.
Reed didn't want to attend the party because there was an individual at the party she was snooping around with and tried to project blame onto O'Keefe for taking too long in coming back out to let her know if everything is cool. It was Reed who felt uncomfortable, not O'Keefe. In that fabricated scenario, it was O'Keefe who wanted to make Reed feel welcomed, and there is even evidence of her being a toxic woman in this scenario as well. Maybe she naturally felt uncomfortable because individuals knew she was, a term described for a woman with a nasty attitude. We're not going to say it, but everyone knows what term that would be. In one scenario, she was waiting to see if everything was cool at the party. In another scenario, she dropped O'Keefe off and went home because that's right, which is a reason for her not attending, because she had a tummy ache. Then she sends a bunch of voicemails blaming O'Keefe for enjoying himself at the party while she was, quote, stuck babysitting. All of this is a bunch of bullshit. The physical evidence is what stands out more than anything alleged or claimed. She mentioned how she may have, quote, clipped O'Keefe's knee or ran over his foot, and even explained what condition he would have been in after she had clipped his knee, such as throwing up and crawling on the ground. Why are you giving such elaborate details of a scenario that doesn't align with, wait for it, watching him go inside the home? You see? There was DNA of her damaged taillight on O'Keefe's clothing. This contradicts all of those bogus scenarios upon arriving at the party. We could dig even deeper into this case, but we've already proven Reed was guilty of vehicular homicide. Yep, she murdered O'Keefe with her vehicle, and there was a cover-up afterwards to make it appear he was assaulted. Well, that's enough for today. This is the Chaos Sector.